Yes, awesome, awesome, and we'll see what winds up happening. Hi, Greg Roach. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Oh, fantastic. Thank you for being patient with us while we worked out the kinks in the link. We are actually live, and sometimes I think every time I'm on the computer connecting with someone across town or across the world, what a miracle it is
It's
that
true.
we're having this experience. And so this is so awesome. Thank you for co-teaching the class last night. I got emails this morning that it was one of the most transformative classes, especially for some of the members that were in the very front, saying it was life transforming going forward. The way that they respond to everyone is changed based on what Greg Larson, will you come on with us?
Yeah, come on, baby.
It's so amazing to kind of have this experience and to be making a little bit of a journey together. Two Gregs, myself, going to the land of miracles in a few months together. And the teaching or the inspiration for this really truly being an amazing book that was channeled and written out by therapists in order to help us understand spirituality, understand who we truly are. And that's how one of the things that I see the Course in Miracles doing is really representing a formula for a way to be in the world that allows us to be the best versions of ourselves, to be in love with ourselves, with that which created us. And Greg, I know you've been doing spiritual tours and spiritual teachings for a number of years. What does the Course in Miracles mean to you, Greg Roach?
Well, yes, we have to differentiate between Greg me and Greg him. We call him baby. Um, to me, the Course in Miracles is a modern exemplar of the idea of a scientific spiritual system. Because in the ancient world, there was a spiritual science that understood very clearly the stages of personal transformation, that understood the kinds of situations or circumstances that would bring about a shift in consciousness, that knew where along the path an initiate was. And so there was quite literally a spiritual science that was the underpinning of all of this work, and we've kind of lost that over the last millennia or centuries, and we've moved more towards in some ways it could be called the age of the guru or the age of the priest, where there always has to be a mediator, and we've lost the scientific understanding about the progression of spiritual awakening and the progression of spiritual consciousness.
And
And so one of the things that
so I hear you saying that the Course in Miracles to you offers this scientific pathway into knowing and assessing where you are. And when I say scientific, I mean sort of laid out, do this and have this observation, do this and you'll observe this. Sort of ways and definitions, things are defined out.
absolutely, and the idea that there is a consistent path and a consistent methodology, and that there is an understanding of the overall progression that an individual goes through, and that will be largely similar across individuals. Obviously, the specifics are different for everyone, but it is a system, and one of the things that I love about it is that, and we talked about this last night. Its first job is to challenge your perceptual basis for reality. the habituated, enculturated way that we look at the world that's based on our mental constructs. And it systematically breaks those down so that you can then perceive in a more authentic way and create a space where in that authentic perception the truth is allowed in. And the truth is that it's all love, that everything is love. And that's one of the really, when we first spoke and when you first had the inspiration to say, listen, our next trip to Egypt, A Course in Miracles, let's bring those two things together. Immediately, as soon as you said it, the light bulb went on for me. Because one of the things that happens when you're in an ancient Egyptian temple, for instance, is that you are confronted by the outpicturing of a very different mental construct for experiencing life, for perceiving the world. And so for us as modern Western people, there's immediately this reconstitution of perception that happens just when you're in the spaces of these ancient temples. And so there's such a beautiful, connection between those first stages of the Course in Miracles and what it's like to you've been there, both of you have been there, to confront the reality of some of those ancient structures. It staggers your mind. And when you're sort of reeling in a way where you suddenly realize, wow, all of the stuff that I thought that I knew I don't actually know, that's a space where spirit comes in. And that's exactly what the Course in Miracles is doing.
It's like that's what was so amazing to be. It felt like being on a set or on a movie, or it was surreal. The experience of being, getting off a plane, landing in Egypt, experiencing the great pyramids, and there is an energy that comes off of them that's absolutely profound, transforming in the consistency of how I saw and experienced everything going forward. And the words, as they leap off the page and sort of connect with my heart, the words in A Course in Miracles wind up having a system in there that is so transformative as well. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Are you getting feedback?
Yeah, I was hearing that too.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I've got a headset in, so I'm gonna hope that it's not on my end, but.
It's probably on ours. For some reason, the feedback just went away right there. And Greg, last night when you were teaching Greg Larson, Baby Larson, what you shared was so powerful. And I think this is one of the things that, without a shadow of a doubt, the Course in Miracles, if it just gets the points, some of the points that you shared last night, would you just talk about what you were sharing last night?
I think what was the most, critical tool is this idea that we make decisions and take action based out of either love or fear. And those feelings, those emotions are so easy to distinguish that when you're caught in a moment of, oh, which way do I go, or what decision do I make, it's very easy to tell if you're operating from fear or from love.
And that was so beautiful. And you said if there was no judgment as well. Some of the stories that you shared last night, and I think anyone that's able to see this or watch this, if we can get those points across, the non-judgment, coming from this space of not having a perceived outcome already, not judging it, just being in love, just being in the space of questioning everything and every thought that comes in, to evaluate it from the space of love.
we're just listening to all this feedback, so we're trying to figure out where that's coming from. But well, the whole thing was, I went on this amazing journey to Norway, and there was all these amazing synchronicities. And even though there was plenty of obstacles and no's, like outright communications of no, I operated from a space of, I shall not judge anything, good, basically good or bad. It's just it's something that it's a response, and either I can, approach it from fear and it's not going to work, and I'm not being accepted, I'm not lovable, whatever that is, or I can operate from this space of love. And as I move forward, even though there was a no, and even though I got several no's, it ended up becoming the most beautiful yes at the end, because I followed the vibration of love.
And so when you look and when you're experiencing life from the space of making sense of everything that's happening as a loving experience, somehow those no's were not causing fear in yourself and not limiting what was possible for you to experience. You continued on the course, allowing for the miracles to come in one by one by one. And if we had to summarize a Course in Miracles, the summary would be, you can only be in a vibration of love or fear. If you're feeling any sort of fear, evaluate what you have judged and let go of any judgment. And in the land of Egypt, in the land of Norway, when we go on these sacred journeys far away from what we know already, from what we've experienced already in this lifetime, we open up to receiving all sorts of things. And in the receiving of those, we can start experiencing the miracles that are available to us every day in our life at home, but because we're far away, we become more available and receptive to them, and we bring that technology back home with us and apply that to every area of our lives.
Yeah, there's something about being outside of the setting for our habitual responses when we travel. This is one of the things that to me is so beautiful about travel as a spiritual tool, or a tool for spiritual evolution and transformation, is that it inherently puts us into a very different frame of perception. And I think it makes it easier for us to enter into an awareness, for instance, of this core principle of how are you responding, love or fear, or an understanding of, wow, yeah, my habitual thought patterns, which are inauthentic, which are lies, if you will, have been forming the world that I live in, because this is also, one of the core principles of the Course in Miracles. That it's those habituated thoughts that create separation, that create quote-unquote sin, that create quote-unquote disease, and that it's in that space of untruth that we are separated from joy, from our birthright, from our salvation, which is the word that they use. And I think oftentimes when we're at home and in our normal, frame of experience, it's kind of harder to break out of those mental constructs and move forward into the space of the heart, where you, allow the energy of truth and the energy of the divine to be the informative substance of your perception. And for me, I find this over and over again, and I see it in the people that travel with me. When you're in that different place and in that different space, and especially when you're surrounded by a group of like-minded, like-hearted souls, and we're all focused on that path, for 10 days or 2 weeks, there's a level of permission that happens, and there's an inherent shift of perception that I just find over and over again allows a heart opening to occur, And then it's exactly as you said, you're able to take those technologies, so to speak, those mental, spiritual, vibrational technologies, and then bring them home and implement them, in powerful ways that maybe you couldn't quite get a hold of, without that permission and that change of framework that the travel represents. So, yeah, you said it perfectly. There is something that happens when we're in these other places that's sort of an accelerant. It's almost like the match, to the tinder that's waiting to be lit.
And I think the other part that comes in so beautifully, thank you for that, Greg, that was so beautiful. The other parts that come in is in Egypt, seeing these things with every part of your intelligence. So often we give credence to our thinking and to what we're, the way that we receive reality. And when you get into these sacred places and these sacred sites and your skin and you're listening and all of your senses, your taste buds, everything, your sense of smell is immersed in the experience, there's sort of like a cracking of the shell that you've formulated around yourself that begins to crack open and let more of what is real, more ways that you can define things. And I think one of the things that the Course in Miracles is really great at doing is redefining these spiritual terms and spiritual words. And so, Greg, can you go over some of the words that we could redefine in the Course in Miracles and how that's redefined?
Absolutely. Well, you raise a very good point, and again, for me, a lot of the power of the Course in Miracles is the way that it kind of recaptures this ancient spiritual science that's been maybe not completely lost, because there has been what's referred to as the underground stream, of Rosicrucianism and some of these other things that have kept these tools alive. But certainly in the exoteric sense, it's been slumbering for many centuries. And now I think we're all quite privileged to be a part of this reawakening to this ancient wisdom and this ancient knowledge. And so part of what the Course has done is that it has taken, I said this, last night, I was raised as a Christian, even though I don't self-identify with that term any longer. But to me, the Course is both the most Christian book and the most non-Christian book that I've ever encountered. So it rejects the idea of sin. It rejects the idea of error. It rejects the idea of the traditional idea of salvation. And it brings all of those things back to the fundamental concept that God and God's creation are completely inseparable, and that salvation, one of the things I love, I just was reading this yesterday. It says, this is in some of the later lessons, I am the salvation of the world. Which is not to say that I am the Savior in the way that, Jesus the Christ was, or at least mythologically has been portrayed. That's a whole separate conversation. But I am the salvation of the world because I am my own salvation. And so, a big part of what it's doing is that it's, as you said, it's recasting and reconstituting the verbiage, the structure of our salvation, and it's returning the power to us and giving us our authority, our autonomy back, and making us aware of the fact that the divine is at hand. The kingdom of heaven is at hand. It is right here and right now. And the only thing that stands between me and that realization are my thoughts, so to speak. And I loved your example, Sarah, from last night when you talked about how victimization or blame automatically meant that you were giving away power. And that's one of the other, lessons in the course is that, there's no such thing as blame, because there's no such thing in truth, in reality, as powerlessness. And
one of the things that the Course really shares so beautifully is how powerful we truly are, and that redefinition. Just to share the story about blame, what I shared is every time I found myself blaming another, it was from the space of understanding that I thought they were stronger or more powerful or more capable than I was. I never blamed my children for anything, but I would blame people that I felt could do something, and I'd automatically given away my power and responsibility to that person. And so redefining blame for myself came in so beautifully. And I also, the Course, I got that from the Course. And the Course redefined fear for me. The Course says the correction of fear, anytime I'm afraid or anytime I'm hurt or sad, is my responsibility. And it's essentially important for me to release myself. It's my responsibility to release fear quickly so that I can emerge from the conflict to bring peace to the minds of others and those around me. And signs that you're in love, and signs that you're in fear. The sign that you're in fear shows when you're not trusting or synergized or in flow, it means you've chosen wrongly. You've chosen to interpret something wrongly, or you've allowed your mind to miscreate something, and you've not allowed possibility or change or love to guide your thought and thinking process. And so for me, that's so beautiful when we allow ourselves to examine, oh, it's me and I'm responsible. If I'm not in synergy, if I'm not in flow, there's something occurring because I've chosen wrongly. I've allowed my mind to miscreate, or I've not allowed possibility to guide it. And on our last trip to Egypt, it was so beautiful because we were so taken care of. There was no fear from the outside environment coming up, staying at the Mina house, staying on this beautiful, the Athendina, being able to go into these buses and into these spaces without any fear, and experiencing the outside world as created friendly and loving for us to have the maximum engagement, for the internal dialogue to be recreated to allow flow and love and synergy to happen. That was so beautiful, and I think you just spoke of that on your trip to Norway as well, Greg Larson, baby Larson.
Well, it's a big thing with the Course too. And what I've been, studying recently is it really addresses how our perspective or our perception of the world is so powerful in creating our reality. And so that's the whole thing, going back to this fear-love. If you're going to go on this journey to Egypt and your perspective is tainted by some opinion or some information, whether it be true or false, or whether it be just, there could be a million acts of love that day in Egypt, or there could be one act of violence, and if that's the one you choose to focus on, it shifts your whole perspective. And so that just, is just a powerful reflection of how important it is to bring awareness to that part of this process. And so that's how I see this. I mean, I'm so looking forward to going to Egypt on this trip because, and I want to set the intention that it be this most powerful experience of allowing love to guide every perception, every step, every journey, every temple, every ceremony, every interaction. When we're eating dinner, when we're whatever we're doing together, traveling together, I want love to infuse every perception, every interaction, and make it be a powerful journey of miracles.
So beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because this is a question that I get asked a lot, not only, like people that are thinking of traveling with me, not only to Egypt, but Morocco, Bali, any of the places that I go to, Mexico. But I get asked just by people on the street or, like my chiropractor. The people are always like, oh, aren't you afraid to go there? And I always think it's such an odd question, and I do my best to stay out of a place of judgment about it because I know that people are just largely misinformed, and especially because of the media environment that we live in. But I sometimes I want to say, have you watched the news about what's been happening in Missouri and right here in America? I mean, and so yeah, these are questions that for me they never come up in truth, and I'm always a little chagrined, when they do come up. But so to Sarah, to your point earlier, and speaking in practical, pragmatic terms, one of the things that we do on our trips is that we go to extreme lengths to make sure that all needs are met, so that the group is able to travel with ease and grace and to be fully immersed in the work at hand. And oftentimes there's a lot of stage management that happens, behind the scenes in order to facilitate that ease and grace. Oftentimes it all just flows, and you never even have to, to give it a second thought. But so that's a really important component for us, is making sure that all needs are met. And we're very blessed in that we have incredibly talented partners and people and facilities in Egypt. So whether it's the Mean House, which is one of the most famous hotels on the planet, 5-star place where the Armistice Treaty to end the First World War was signed, and where Marilyn Monroe and Clark Gable have vacationed, and the list goes on. All the way to the Afandina, the private boat that we were able to sail on, which is, becomes our own personal, home/womb as we're sailing, down the Nile for a week. We're really blessed to have access to all of those things so that these trips can be facilitated in such a beautiful, graceful, easy way.
One of the things that I loved about this experience recently was, and it goes to the Course in Miracles as well, which is you can't master fear. You can only dissolve it with love. And because yourself, myself, the other teachers that were with us on the last journey, you had access to us the whole trip. And so whatever came in on a personal level was dealt with and dissolved with love in such a powerful way. Being able to connect with and channel those that had passed on. One of our party had just lost their husband, and so a part of that was channeling and bringing in those loved ones. We had a baby on the trip that was inside the womb as well. We had so many experiences that you could talk about. And on the Afandina, access to master healers, your activation processes, having a week of where we're all together Greg Roach, with all of the work that you do, having access to you 24/7 on this boat, on this journey, to make sense of the parts of your life that may not have been dissolved with love before, so that you're able to overcome any obstacle or any fear that comes up in the future when you get that profound understanding and you're initiated back into remembering all that you already know in your heart and in your core.
Absolutely. And, you know, one of the things about the ancient Egyptian mystery school, the ancient scientific system of spiritual transformation, is that it was an acknowledgement that we begin in unity, we experience the illusion of duality, polarity, conflict, and through our self-mastery, we ultimately return to a state of union, but a state of conscious union and a state of conscious unity with all of creation. That was the big arc of the ancient mystery schools. And that's the arc of A Course in Miracles, ultimately. To break down the illusions of perception that stand between you and the unity consciousness that is our birthright, and all of the joy and ease and grace that flows from that. With that said, we are all having human experiences. We all do have our stuff, you know, and oftentimes, sometimes, in every lifetime, you reach a point of challenge. And one of the blessings of the work that I do with Spirit Quest is, more often than not, there are people that are called to come on these journeys who are at one of these challenge points in their lives. You know, either they've lost someone, or they've lost a job, or they're you know, looking at the appearance of illness, or you can sort of check off the list of kind of human misfortune or human challenges, and people will often land, you know, in Egypt or in Bali or wherever, and that's the foremost thing in their perception, because that's the active challenge in their life. And it's a real blessing to be able to work with people like yourselves and with our whole groups. You know, here's the thing. Everyone that's called to travel, everyone that's called to this experience of transformation is there in their own place of power, in their own place of leadership. They're all healers and guides and teachers in their own right. And that's one of the amazing things to me. And I'm always, you know, I'm so blessed because I sit at the feet of people like yourselves and watch you work and get to you know, be a sponge and soak up your energy field, you know. And so that is one of the amazing things to me that I see repeated over and over again, is that people come. Sometimes they come on these trips and they don't know why. But by the end of the trip, they understand why. And we have all lifted one another up in some way or another. We each have our gifts. And the gifts that are brought forth by members of the group, sometimes you'd be like, wow, I didn't know you were a Reiki master. Yeah, I'm going to do sessions for everybody, you know, or whatever the case may be. And that's one of the really, to me, most beautiful aspects of this calling and of these journeys. It's because, you know, these soul tribes, they coalesce. We find one another. We're magnetized. We answer the call, and we come together. And you know what it's like. Oftentimes, the bonds and the friendships that are formed, they take you, you know, through the end of your life. Other times, you'll, you know, connect with someone for a few weeks, and then the paths diverge again. But the impact that was needed was still made. You know, the connection was still made. So.
I love your own story of how you wound up in Egypt and self-identified as not really spiritual before that trip to Egypt, and then a profound awakening that happened. And I love the first time that you went to Egypt and the experiences that you had. What are some of the things that are coming up right now Greg Larson, Baby Larson, that you think are really important points to share with the Course in Miracles and the Land of Miracles?
You know, what I want to emphasize is, because I was, as I was listening to you guys talk, it's like, how am I being called to serve everyone who joins us on this trip? And one of I have many gifts and talents, but the one that's being truly expressed to me right now is this, is activating the heart in the most powerful, amazing way. And so I feel so called on this trip that everyone who joins us to bring all my gifts and talents and to bring all of my, as a healer of hearts, my heart has been tremendously healed because I'm in all these interactions with people on such a profoundly deep, loving level. And so for me, my personal commitment to this trip is to, with everything I have, expand everyone's heart to the greatest possible degree so we can all immerse ourselves in love and then be transformed by love and then leave Egypt and this journey being messengers of love.
That's so beautiful. And thank you. How are you being called to serve? That service coming through as activating the greatest level of love possible within each person, heart activation, energy field. And in lesson 131 in the Course in Miracles, it talks about you look for immortality within the darkness of the dream of death. And who could succeed where contradiction is the setting of his searching? And in the land of miracles, in the land of these great temples, in the land of pyramids, we're really the contradiction of our thinking really comes to a forefront to give us evidence of miracles all around us. And it takes it makes immortality of ourselves being realized possible. And so there's a different focus, meaning we go from the goals that are meaningless, that we didn't realize were meaningless, to having these profound goals of the spirit activated. And we then also become available for them to happen because we've let go of anything that was meaningless and any of the contradictions that we had on a subconscious level. And I think that's what happened with you, Greg Roach.
Very much so, yeah. My first trip to Egypt was not unlike a car wreck, not in, the literal sense, but I was just completely unprepared for what happened to me there, and it was completely unexpected. So the reason I say it was like a car wreck is that it was suddenly something that came out of, an invisible vector and just impacted my life in the most profound way, imaginable. And this is something else that I see over and over again with Egypt in particular. When people are called to go there, it's because their soul is calling this specific incarnation to awaken and remember everything that they've already learned. I see this over and over again where people had achieved a state of high initiation and high spiritual progression in a previous incarnation. And they're returning to that sort of home, if you will, in order to remember and awaken and re-embrace everything that they have already known and learned. And, I love the idea of A Course in Miracles in the Land of Miracles, because Egypt really, truly is the land of miracles. You know, first of all, just in a physical sense, you both know exactly what I'm talking about. When you look at these ancient structures, the pyramids, or the, you know, these monumental, gorgeous, just, you know, staggeringly beautiful temples, they're miracles in stone. There are works and technologies at play there that we still to this day do not understand. So in the ancient world, they were playing on a level and with forces of the natural world that are different from ours today. And in many ways, with things that were demonstrably, you know, superior, despite our perception that we are the pinnacle of human, you know, development here in the modern Western world. So first of all, you're just confronted, your eye is just confronted with miracles that are still standing. But their worldview, the universe that they existed in that ancient time, was a place that was infused with miracles. They lived in this fabric of the miraculous and the magical. And we, you know, in, again, the modern West, with our view of the world, we can be kind of dismissive of those things, and we think, oh, you know, well, what a quaint superstition those ancient people had. But we've evolved beyond those things, you know. But in truth, what those are is that they're guideposts to the miraculous. They're guideposts to a way of experiencing life through the eyes of the heart. And, you know, so that's one of the other, like, just beautiful, you know, synchronicities between A Course in Miracles and where we're going, you know, to really actively undertake this work. They just fit like hand in glove to me. So.
Awesome. I'm so looking forward to our journey, and for all of those that are watching this, for you who's watching this, the Course says, be glad that search you must. Be glad as well that you search for heaven and must find the goal that you really want. No one can fail to want this goal and reach it in the end. And whatever we're doing, we're giving whatever we're doing power. And so as we're coming to the end of this broadcast, this webinar of A Course in Miracles in the Land of Miracles, I really want to leave you with you give everything in your life its power. You give this energy, and the various tools right now are all available, and you're on this path. No one can fail to reach the goal, for it's in your soul that goal has been activated. Just the curiosity, every step is leading you gently back to that goal that's in your heart, back to the eyes that are in your heart, to be able to see and experience all that's possible. And so come join us. Please reach out to us, because we would love, this is another thing in the Course in Miracles, you can't attain the state of heaven by yourself. It's in service. It's with your brothers, with your sisters. That's one of the reasons that I'm so committed, is because I know oneness. And I really want for you and everyone to experience that love and that oneness and the availability of living the dream that through the eyes in your heart. Baby, what would you like to leave everyone with?
Just love, love, and more love. I'm going to infuse this trip with love. That's how I feel called to serve. And not only an expansion of the energetic heart, but an expansion of the physical heart. And so, because I myself love so much my life and how it's being led by my heart, that I want to gift that to every other human being. And so I want to gift that to you on this trip, a life lived from that vibration of the heart. And so if you're making decisions from that, if you're taking steps in a positive direction from that, it's such life becomes a miracle. You live A Course in Miracles, and so I want to gift that to everyone who joins us on this trip.
Beautiful. And Greg, everyone that joined us, and Greg Roach, thank you so much for joining us. And I would love for you to just have the last words, and we'll stop the broadcast with your words. Thank you so much for making all of this possible for all of us and for Spirit Quest Tours. And I'd love for you to share all that you'd love to end this with.
Well, I am so appreciative of your messages, both of you, so heartfelt and so beautifully stated. You know, for me, the reason that I want everyone to join us on this trip is extremely selfish, because I can know the truth for someone else in a way that I can't know it for myself. And this is the blessing of these groups and these journeys that we do. It's because I can look across the circle at the 12, 15, 16, 18 other people that are traveling with us, and I can see the truth of the beauty of that soul and the perfection of that soul in a way that I really can't quite get my hands on for my own self. But by doing that, I then find the next time I go and look in the mirror, I've moved myself a little bit further along towards, you know, my own truth, the truth that is the reality for all of us. And so that's why I want everyone to come and join us in Egypt. It's for very selfish reasons, because I want to be able to look across the circle into the eyes of beauty and love and know the truth for that soul, so that I can then bring that back into my own life.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We love you, and we'll broadcasting again coming up. And so, Greg Roach, will you say just a few closing words, as we might call it a prayer, or a just a closing prayer?
Absolutely. Sacred and divine spirit, essence of all that is, beating heart of life, we know that you are right here, right now, fully present in our blood, in our breath, in our bodies, in our minds. We are so grateful. We are so grateful to be called to this work. We are so grateful to be blessed with this beautiful group of people that is already setting foot in the sacred land of miracles, so that we can walk in the path of love and become avatars of love in our own lives, in our own communities, in our own homes. And by transforming ourselves, be allowed to transform the world. We are grateful for this blessing, and we accept this calling. And so it is.
And so it is.
So it